5 in the morning. A dirt road at 7,000 feet above sea level. It's dark, it's cold, and your breath comes out in clouds. And then you see them. 1,000 runners, silent, moving through the mist like ghosts. This is Iten, Kenya, and this happens every single day. The strange thing is this. About 400 miles to the north of that dirt road, scientists dug up the oldest complete human skeleton on Earth, a boy who lived 1.6 million years ago. So the same country that gave the world humanity is now the country that runs faster than anyone else on it. Kenya doesn't just have safari, it has snow on the equator, elephants walking under Kilimanjaro, 2 million wildebeest crossing a river full of crocodiles, and a philosophy pole that changed how the world thinks about time. So put on some coffee, the Kenyan kind, if you can find it, and settle in, because the next 30 minutes are going to change how you see Africa. Let me start with something you can actually do in Kenya that you cannot do in most places on Earth. You can stand with one foot in the northern hemisphere and one foot in the southern. The equator runs right through the country. Drive 100 miles north of Nairobi and there's a painted line and a sign. That equator line, that's just the beginning. Kenya is huge. About 220,000 square miles, that's Texas and Louisiana combined, with almost 58 million people packed inside. And it sits on one of the most active pieces of geology on the planet. Slicing straight down the middle north to south is something called the Great Rift Valley. It's a crack in the earth, about 700 miles long. Two continental plates, Nubian and Somali, are pulling apart 1/3 of an inch every year. Doesn't sound like much, but give it 25 million years and East Africa will break off, become its own continent. You're literally standing on the edge of a continent being born. Along that rift are 12 active volcanoes. The Maasai call one of them Oldoinyo Lengai Mountain of God, the only volcano on Earth that erupts black carbonatite lava, cool enough to film up close. The country's coast is 333 miles of Indian Ocean, same length as California's coast from LA to the Oregon border. And Nairobi sits at almost 6,000 feet above sea level, higher than Denver. Which is why the weather there is basically eternal spring. And then there's Mount Kenya, over 17,000 feet, Africa's second tallest peak. And here's the crazy part, it has a permanent glacier on top, snow, on the equator, one of only a handful of places on Earth where that's possible. Kenya also shares Lake Victoria, the second largest freshwater lake in the world, right after our own Lake Superior. And it has Lake Turkana, the largest desert lake on the planet, glowing jade green from the algae in its water. That's the land. Quick pause before we go any further. I want to know who's actually on this ride with me, not just a thumbs up. Actually tell me, what city are you in right now? Is the sun up where you are, or is it 2 a.m. and you should probably be asleep? Comments below. And if Kenya has already put its hand on your shoulder, one word will do it. Karibu. That's how I'll know you're here. Here's something most people don't realize about Kenya. There isn't one Kenyan culture. There are 42. Kenya has more than 40 ethnic groups, each with its own language, its own traditions, its own way of building houses and cooking dinner. It's a bit like America. A Texan, a New Yorker, and someone from New Orleans are all American, but they eat differently and talk differently. Kenya is like that, but with 42 versions. You've got the Kikuyu farmers in the Central Highlands growing coffee and tea, the Maasai cattle herders on the southern savannah, the Luo fishermen by Lake Victoria, the Kalenjin the runners we'll come back to, the Turkana nomads in the northern desert, the Swahili traders on the coast who've been sailing wooden boats to Arabia for 1,000 years. Now what holds all 42 together? One word: Harambee. It means pull together in Swahili. It's on the Kenyan coat of arms. When a family in a village needs to build a school, when someone dies, when a bridge washes out, neighbors just show up. Nobody organizes it. That's Harambee. Then you've got the Maasai warriors, the tall men in the red robes called shuka. Their most famous ritual is called adumu, the jumping dance. Warriors form a circle and take turns leaping straight up. 5 feet, 6 feet, the women watch. They pick. And here's a Kenyan philosophy the world already borrowed without knowing. Pole pole. It means slow, slow. Don't rush. Take your time. Climbers on Kilimanjaro use it every day. And that other Swahili phrase, Hakuna Matata, the one Disney's Lion King made every American kid say, for 30 years, that started here. But the most extraordinary thing about Kenyan people isn't something you can see. It's something you can measure. A group called the Kalenjin 6 million people in one corner of the Rift Valley, 0.06% of the global population, makes up 3/4 of every marathon world champion in the last 40 years. We'll come back to them. But first, let's talk about how these 42 nations actually live. Some in glass towers with fiber optic internet. Some in mud huts under the same stars their ancestors saw 1,000 years ago. And here's the amazing part: sometimes it's the same family. Let's start at the top. Nairobi, 5 million people, almost 6,000 feet up higher than Denver. Locals call it the Green City in the Sun. And Nairobi has something no other capital on earth has: a wild safari park inside its own boundaries. 4 miles from downtown skyscrapers, you can watch lions hunting zebras with the skyline in the background. Rhinos, giraffes, all inside the city. The other surprise about Nairobi tech, big tech. It's called Silicon Savannah. A Kenyan company invented M-Pesa in 2007, mobile money by text message. Today, 96% of Kenyans use it. You can pay for tea with an SMS. And smack in the middle of Nairobi is Karura Forest. 500 acres of urban wilderness, saved from developers by a woman named Wangari Maathai. Down on the coast, Mombasa, a port city since the 1100s. Now head off the highway, out in the savannah near Amboseli, a Maasai village. Called a manyatta, 10 to 30 huts in a circle. The huts are enkaji, and here's what shocks visitors: the women build them. Sticks, mud, and cow dung. 6 weeks per house. Better insulation than most American homes. Up in the Central Highlands, around Nyeri, Kikuyu villages instead. Wattle and daub houses, each family with 1 to 3 acres. They grow coffee, tea, bananas, up at 5 a.m. to pick before the sun gets hot. Here's what floors me. A Maasai grandmother in a manyatta has a smartphone. A tech CEO in Nairobi drives home to Nyeri on Saturday to help his father pick coffee. That's not a contradiction. That's Kenya. Speaking of amazing people, Kenya has produced some of the most influential humans of the past 100 years. and you probably already know one of them. 3 names. Eliud Kipchoge. If you follow marathon running, you already know him. Greatest marathoner in history. World record, 2 hours, 1 minute, 9 seconds. And in 2019, in a special event, he became the first human to run a full marathon in under 2 hours. 1 hour, 59 minutes, 40 seconds. Kipchoge was born in a tiny village called Kapsisiwa, Kalenjin, ran 5 miles to school every day as a kid. Now, he trains in a small camp in Kaptagat, shares a room with 20 other athletes, cleans the bathroom himself. His nickname, the Philosopher. Second name, Wangari Maathai. In 2004, she became the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Not for politics, for trees. She founded the Green Belt movement, rural women planting trees against deforestation. To date, more than 30 million trees. She's the reason Karura Forest still exists. When developers tried to bulldoze it in 1998, she stood in front of them. They beat her. She kept coming back. She won. Third name, Karen Blixen, a Danish writer who lived in Kenya from 1913 to 1931. She kept a coffee farm at the foot of the Ngong Hills outside Nairobi. Wrote a memoir about her life there called Out of Africa. Hollywood turned it into a 1985 film with Meryl Streep and Robert Redford that won 7 Academy Awards. Her farmhouse is still there. It's a museum now. Same furniture, same coffee mill her workers used a century ago. But Kenya's most famous stories aren't even about people. They're about elephants. The African bush elephant, biggest land animal on Earth, up to 7 tons. In Amboseli National Park, there's a herd of 1,600, and a few have something you almost never see anymore. Tusks that touch the ground, 6 to 9 feet of ivory. They're called tuskers. Only about 30 left in the whole world. 6 of them live in Amboseli. The biggest is named Craig, 100 pounds of ivory on each side. Amboseli's elephants have lived alongside the Maasai for thousands of years without conflict. The Maasai don't hunt elephants, so the elephants learned. They walk right past villages, right past warriors, and nobody bothers anybody. The matriarchs, the lead females, can live 60 to 70 years. They remember every waterhole, every drought path. When a matriarch dies, her family stands over her body for days. They touch her bones with their trunks. But the most extraordinary elephant story in Kenya is not in Amboseli. It's in Nairobi, at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. A woman named Daphne Sheldrick spent decades trying to raise orphaned elephants, calves whose mothers were killed by poachers or lost to drought. Before her, no calf under 6 months ever survived. The milk formulas killed them. Daphne cracked it, formulated a milk they could digest, trained keepers to sleep next to the calves so they wouldn't die of loneliness. Today, the Sheldrick Trust has rescued over 320 orphans. More than 160 have been reintroduced to the wild, where they're now having their own calves. You can foster one for $50 a year. Feeding elephants is emotional. Feeding you on a Kenyan safari, that's a whole different ritual. And it starts with fire meat and no forks allowed. Two words, Nyama Choma, Swahili for roasted meat, goat or beef, slow cooked over acacia charcoal, seasoned with one thing salt. That's it. It comes to your table on a wooden board with kachumbari, fresh tomato, red onion, chili, and lime, and a big mound of ugali dense corn dough you tear off with your hand and use to scoop things up. No forks, no knives, just fingers meet and conversation. On Fridays and Saturdays, Kenyans gather around Nyama Choma the way Americans gather around a backyard grill. Walk past a place like Carnivore in Nairobi at 6 p.m., you can smell it from 3 blocks away. One last thing, Kenyan coffee. The Kikuyu Highlands grow some of the finest Arabica beans on earth. Grade AA, the biggest beans, the brightest acidity notes of black currant and citrus. Baristas in Portland and San Francisco fight over Kenyan lots. Grab a bag next time you're at a specialty roaster. You'll thank me. Now hold on to your seat, because you're about to watch the greatest wildlife spectacle left on planet Earth. The Great Migration. It's the largest movement of animals on Earth. 1.5 million wildebeest, those weird animals that look like a cow and a horse, had a fight. 500,000 zebras, 200,000 gazelles, 2 million animals total. Every year, they move in a giant circle, 500 to 800 miles, from the Serengeti in Tanzania up to the Maasai Mara in Kenya and back. They follow the rain. They follow the grass. It never stops. The most dramatic moment happens between July and October, right here in the Mara, when the herds have to cross the Mara River, only 100 feet wide. Doesn't look like much until you notice what's in it. Nile crocodiles, 20 feet long, 1,500 pounds. They wait half submerged. They've done this for 30,000 years. And the wildebeest know, but they can't stop. If they don't cross, they'll die of thirst on the wrong side. So they charge. 20,000 at once. Water goes white with foam. Every year, 250,000 wildebeest die on the migration. Drowned, trampled, taken by crocs. Sit in a safari vehicle at 6 a.m. Fog, silence, and then 20,000 animals scream at the same moment on the riverbank. It's a sound you don't forget. And here's the deep meaning. Those wildebeest produce roughly 9 million tons of manure per year, which fertilizes the entire ecosystem. If the migration stopped tomorrow, the savanna would collapse within 50 years. Wildebeest run because they have to. Kenyans run well. That's a whole other story. And it starts in one small town at 7,000 feet. Iten, a tiny town on the edge of the Rift Valley, 7,000 feet up. Locals call it home of champions. The press calls it the Hollywood of distance running. Walk 100 yards down its main road, and you've probably passed 3 people with marathon PBs under 2:10. Remember the Kalenjin 0.06% of the global population, but 3/4 of every marathon champion in modern history. The answer isn't one thing, it's 5 things stacked. Genetics. Kalenjins have long, slender, lower legs, efficient for running. Altitude 7,000 feet forces the body to make more red blood cells. Childhood kids run to school 5 miles a day from age 6. Culture running is what everyone's grandfather did, and mentorship champions like Kipchoge train side by side with the next generation every morning. Add it all together and you get a phenomenon. From runners in the highlands, let's head to the coast, where the wind smells like cloves and time moves at the speed of a wooden sailboat. Lamu, a tiny island off Kenya's north coast, UNESCO World Heritage Site. The oldest continuously inhabited Swahili town in East Africa, dating back to the 1300s. And here's what shocks Americans. There are no cars on Lamu. None. Zero. Transportation is either donkey, The island has 3,000 of them, or dhow, the traditional wooden sailboats Swahili sailors have used for 1,000 years. That's it. Walk the narrow whitewashed alleys. Notice the hand-carved wooden doors on every home. Each door took months to carve. Motifs from Arab, Persian, Indian, and Portuguese design, 600 years of Indian Ocean trade in one piece of wood. Wake up to the call to prayer. Breakfast on mandazi and spiced chai on a rooftop. Get lost. Take a sunset dhow across to Sheila Beach, 12 kilometers of empty white sand. From ocean to lake, Kenya has one place where the water turns pink. Literally. Lake Nakuru National Park, a Rift Valley lake about 100 miles northwest of Nairobi. When conditions are right, up to 1.5 million flamingos gather on its shores at once, and the entire shoreline turns hot pink. Roger Tory Peterson, one of America's greatest bird experts, called it the greatest bird spectacle on Earth. Not the greatest in Africa, the greatest anywhere. The lakes here are all connected: Nakuru, Bogoria, Naivasha, Elementaita. Together, they form a UNESCO designation called the Kenya Lake System. Lake Bogoria has 10 hot geysers, boiling water shooting into the air. Hippos wallow in cooler pools 30 yards away. Lake Naivasha is the only freshwater lake in the Rift. Karen Blixen used to row here in the 1920s. Now let's head back to the coast to a fort built when Shakespeare was still writing plays. Fort Jesus, Mombasa. Built in 1593, the same year Shakespeare was writing Romeo and Juliet, UNESCO listed. For 3 centuries, it was the single most strategically important building on the Swahili coast. It changed hands between Portugal, Oman, and the British 9 times. Walls 8 feet thick, 60 feet tall. Stand on the ramparts and you see container ships entering Mombasa port, 400 years of history quietly meeting. Right next to it, Old Town Mombasa. Narrow whitewashed alleys, carved doors, the smell of cloves, cardamom, and jasmine every evening. On Moi Avenue, you'll see the famous Mombasa tusks, 4 giant aluminum elephant tusks made in 1952 to greet a young Queen Elizabeth. The food in Mombasa is totally different from inland Kenya. It's fusion Swahili, Arab, Indian. Try biryani Mombasa, kaimati sesame dough balls in syrup, maharagwe ya nazi beans in coconut milk. East Africa meeting Arabia on one plate. From white walls at sea level to white peaks in the sky, Kenya's next surprise is the snow you can see from the equator. Mount Kenya, 17,057 feet, Africa's second tallest mountain, UNESCO World Heritage. And here's the impossible part. It has glaciers, permanent ice, right on the equator. There are only 3 or 4 places on the entire planet where you can see snow at the equator. This is one of them. The mountain has 3 summits, Batian and Nelayan both, over 17,000 feet, are technical climbs. You need ropes, ice axes, real gear. But a third peak, Point Lenana, at 16,355 feet, regular hikers can reach in 3 to 4 days of trekking. The Kikuyu people believe their supreme god lives on the summit. Traditional Kikuyu houses still face toward Mount Kenya. Right next to Mount Kenya is a smaller range called the Aberdares, cloud forest, waterfalls, and treetops hotel, where Princess Elizabeth was sleeping when word came that her father had died. Now let's swap thin mountain air for warm ocean breeze, because Kenya's coast might be Africa's best-kept beach secret. Diani Beach, 10.6 miles of powder white sand. Coconut palms leaning over turquoise water, 30 miles south of Mombasa. TripAdvisor has voted it Africa's best beach year after year. Travel bloggers call it Kenya's Maldives, and honestly, that's underselling it. The sand is finer. The reef is closer. The wind here is what makes Diani special. Trade winds blow steady all year, which is why kite surfers rank it in the top 5 kite spots on Earth. Plus snorkeling, scuba, deep sea fishing. There's even a place you can skydive right onto the beach. 100 miles further north, Watamu. Warmer, quieter, and it has something Diani doesn't. Sea turtles. Green sea turtles nest on Watamu's beaches every year, March through June. The Watamu Turtle Watch program has protected over 20,000 turtle nests since 1997. Now for the moment, every safari brochure promises, but almost no photo captures right. Elephants, under Kilimanjaro, as the sun goes down. Amboseli National Park, square miles at the base of Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is technically in Tanzania, but Amboseli is where you actually see it best. Snow-capped peak 20,000 feet, floating above the plains, like it's not supposed to be there. The word Amboseli is Maasai for salty dust. That's exactly what you see chalky white ground from an ancient lake that dried up long ago. When elephants walk across the pans, pale dust hangs in the air for minutes. The elephant herd here is 1,600 strong, studied continuously since 1972 by Cynthia Moss, the longest-running elephant research project on Earth. Every elephant has a name, a family history, and Craig, the 6-ton tusker, walks these plains right now, the largest elephant alive on the continent. Here's what a real Amboseli sunset looks like. 6:30 p.m. Sun dropping, dust turning gold, a family of 30 elephants matriarch, in front babies, in the middle teenagers, guarding the back walks toward the Nkongo Narok swamp for their evening drink. Behind them Kilimanjaro. For exactly 4 minutes, that snow cap turns pink, then orange, then deep red, before disappearing into blue-black sky. No filter, no edit. That's Kenya. That's the reason you go. So how do you plan a trip like this? Let's talk logistics. Three parts: timing, money, rules. Timing. July to October is the golden window, dry season, blue skies, great migration on the Kenyan side. Most crowded, most expensive. Want the same experience cheaper? Try June. Rains just stopped, migration is arriving, lodges haven't hit peak rates. Sweet spot. For the coast, January through March. Sunny, dry, warm ocean water. April, May, long rains, cheapest 30 to 50% off, but muddy. Money. Backpacker budget $30 to $55 a day. Hostels, minibuses, local food. Mid-range, $95 to $100 a day. Luxury tented camps and charter flights, $475 to over $1,000 a day. Two big costs. Park fees. Maasai Mara is $200 a day per person in 2026. Amboseli and Lake Nakuru are $60, and flights JFK to Nairobi via Doha or Amsterdam runs $900 to $1,400 round trip. Rules. You need an ETA, electronic travel authorization. Apply on the official government portal, not third-party sites. Costs $30 to $34. Processes in about 3 days. One weird rule: plastic bags are banned in Kenya. Since 2017. Bring one in, and you can be fined up to $40,000 or spend 4 years in jail. No plastic bags. Real law. Best trip length, 12 days. 3 days. Nairobi 4 days. Maasai Mara 3 days. Amboseli 2 days. Diani Beach. Perfect balance. So Kenya, the cradle of humankind, the home of champions, the place where a warrior can jump 5 feet in the air and an elephant can walk through a national park with a city skyline behind it. It's the country where nothing rushes, where pole is a compliment, where a grandmother can build a house with mud and cow dung, and her granddaughter can build an app on a smartphone in the same afternoon. Kenya isn't perfect, but it might just be the country that reminds you what it means to be human, because it's literally where being human started, 1.6 million years ago, on a lake called Turkana. One last thing before I let you go. If Kenya crossed some invisible line in your head just now, from someday to this year, leave one word. Karibu. That's how I'll know. Everything else, the like, the subscribe, the little bell in the corner, you already know what to do. I'm not going to sell it. You've been here 32 minutes. That's a decision you've already made. I'm already packing for the next border. Not going to tell you where, but if you've got a hunch, whisper it in the comments. I collect those. And if there's someone in your life you've been trying to talk into a safari for years, you know exactly who. I mean, just send them this. That's the invitation. You don't need to say anything else. Kwaheri from Kenya, my friend. See you at the next border.